We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear.
To western Iran, 41 kilometers east of Kermanshah, 3:30 in the morning, 84 Delta Force operators were moving through a narrow mountain pass toward an IRGC fortress cut into solid rock. Inside the fortress, 276 Iranian forces guarded Major General Farhad Nouri, 12 mobile missile guidance corps, and a hardened command vault. The U.S. Army had 90 minutes to take the commander and wipe the site. The fortress had 3 main bunkers buried into the mountain and linked by reinforced tunnels. 2 surface checkpoints covered the road. 4 watchtowers looked over the valley. 2 Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft guns and 3 DSHK heavy machine guns guarded the upper terraces. Iranian forces believed the mountain itself was the defense. The outer road was mined. The north saddle was watched by thermal cameras. The command vault sat 4 levels down behind a steel gate. The U.S. Army assault plan used 4 elements. Alpha element had 22 Delta Force operators and the main breach team. They would hit the west checkpoint, clear the first tunnel, and cut the upper bunker from the rest of the site. Bravo element had 20 Delta Force operators and 2 snipers with Mk-11 Mod 0 rifles. They would climb the north saddle, kill the tower crews, and lock down the road with M240B machine guns. Charlie element had 21 Delta Force operators, with 2 breachers carrying C4, shaped charges, and thermite. They would enter through a service shaft on the south face and push for the command vault. Delta element had 21 Delta Force operators and the reserve fire support group. They would block reinforcements, destroy the anti-aircraft guns, and hold the extraction zone. At 3:32, the assault began. Bravo element fired first. J2 suppressed Mk-11 Mod 0 shots, dropped the thermal camera crew on the north saddle. A third shot hit the tower guard above the road. At the same moment, Alpha element cut through a wire lane on the west trail and rushed the first checkpoint with Mk-18 CQBR carbines and M4A1 SOP-MOD-2 rifles. Charlie element reached the steel grate over the service shaft, fixed a shaped charge, and blew it open. Delta element set an M2, Browning on a rock shelf over the road, and aimed down the valley. Iranian forces reacted in pieces, not as one defense. The west checkpoint heard the first blast and thought the south slope had a rock slide. A PKM machine gun team ran toward the tunnel mouth and walked into Alpha element fire. 4 Iranian forces fell in the first 12 seconds. 2 more pulled back and slammed a steel door. The Alpha element hit it with date cord and kept moving. At 3:34, Bravo element owned the north saddle. 1 sniper shifted to the upper terrace and hit the left Zu-23 2-gunner. The second sniper broke the right tower spotlight. 2 Delta Force operators dragged an M240B into position and began firing 6-round bursts across the road switchbacks. Bravo element cut them down before they reached cover. Inside the west tunnel, Alpha element moved fast and close. A flash charge burst through the dark hall. 2 operators entered left, 2 entered right. An Iranian forces squad fired AK-74 rounds from behind sandbags. Alpha element answered with M249 SAW fire and pushed the line back 18 meters. 1 Delta Force operator took a round through his shoulder plate and fell against the wall. At 3:36, Charlie element dropped 14 meters down the service shaft and reached the generator corridor. 2 Iranian engineers ran from the control room. 1 went down to a suppressed burst. The other tried to seal the blast door to level 3. A breacher sprinted forward, jammed a metal wedge into the track, and fixed C4 on the hinge. The blast bent the door offline. Charlie Element moved through smoke, cleared the stairwell, and sent 6 operators down toward the command level. Delta Element hit the terraces at 3:38. A Carl Gustav M3 recoilless rifle fired once and destroyed the first ZU-23-2 gun. The crew behind the second gun swung too late. A second Carl Gustav round hit the wall beside it and showered the platform with rock and steel. By 3:40, the whole fortress knew it was under attack. Sirens sounded. Iranian forces on level 2 formed a blocking line with 2 PKM machine guns at a T-junction outside the storage rooms. Alpha Element reached the bend, saw the muzzle flashes, and dropped flat. A Delta Force grenadier fired 2 rounds into the left wall. The blast stunned the PKM crew. An operator rolled forward, planted a linear charge across the right side barricade, and detonated it. The barrier broke apart. Alpha Element rushed the junction and killed 9 Iranian forces in less than 20 seconds. The Iranian response shifted at 3:42. 40 Iranian forces from the East Barracks moved into the central tunnel with AK-74 rifles and 3 RPG-7 launchers. Bravo Element saw them from the saddle road and called the movement to Delta Element. Delta Element answered with the M2 Browning and pinned the column in the open. The rest ran into a drainage cut and stayed there. Charlie Element reached the command floor at 3:44. The hall outside the vault had 2 steel doors, 1 camera hub, and a firing slot cut into the concrete wall. Iranian forces fired through the slot with a PKM machine gun and held Charlie Element for 40 seconds. A breacher crawled along the right wall, slid a shaped charge under the slot lip, and blasted the gun off its mount. Charlie Element entered the hall and cleared 3 side rooms. The vault door was shut. At 3:46, Alpha Element cut power to the upper bunker and locked level 2 from behind. Thermite burned through the manual release box on the secondary gate. That stopped Iranian forces from reopening the west access corridor. Alpha Element then turned east and linked its fire with Charlie Element through a cross passage. Iranian forces in the center of the mountain were now trapped between 2 Delta Force elements. They tried to hold with 2 PKM guns and 1 DSHK set on a wheeled mount. It lasted 70 seconds. Alpha Element fired 1 AT-4 into the DSHK position. Charlie Element pushed from the other side and finished the line. The fortress commander on site tried a new move at 3:48. He ordered 26 Iranian forces to pull back from the upper stores and form a shield around the vault stair. That left the road defenses weak. Delta Element used the opening at once. 6 operators moved down the outer stair under cover from a MK-48 Mod 0. They reached the terrace fuel point, found 3 parked trucks, and placed thermite on the engine blocks. All 3 trucks burned within a minute. That cut the fastest escape route from the mountain. At 3:50, Iranian forces launched their hardest counterattack. 32 men came up from the lower barracks and hit Charlie Element from the rear tunnel. They fired AK-74 rifles and 2 RPG-7 rounds into the corridor. The first rocket slammed into a concrete post and showered the hall with dust. The second overshot the bend. Charlie Element split in 2. One team held the rear with M4A1 SOP-Mod 2 rifles. The other team stayed on the vault. A Delta Force operator dragged an M249 saw onto a fallen cabinet and fired until the tunnel filled with smoke. 9 Iranian forces fell at the turn. The rest broke back down the stairs. At 3:52, a signal intercept from outside confirmed 3 Iranian trucks and 2 light armored vehicles were climbing from the East Road, 18 minutes away. The clock tightened. In Bravo Element shifted both snipers to the road cut and fed ranges to Delta Element. Delta Element prepared 2 Javelin missiles but waited. The lead vehicles were still too far for a clean shot. Inside the mountain, Charlie Element fixed a double charge on the vault hinge and lock wheel. The first blast cracked the frame, The second peeled the right edge open enough to force entry. The vault opened at 3:54. It held 12 missile guidance cores in shock cases, 18 sealed hard drives, 6 satellite radios, and 4 map boards marked with launch routes. It did not hold Major General Nuri. A hidden door stood open at the back wall. Charlie Element followed the escape route into a narrow lift shaft. The lift car was gone. A cable still shook. The commander was moving down to the emergency tunnel. At 3:56, Alpha and Charlie Elements both drove for the lower shaft. Alpha Element reached the left stair first and met 11 Iranian forces trying to delay the chase. The fight happened at arm's length. MK-18C QBR carbines flashed in the stairwell. One Iranian soldier dropped a live grenade. A Delta Force operator kicked it down 6 steps before it burst. The blast wounded 2 Iranian forces and stunned everyone on the landing. Alpha Element recovered first and pushed through. Delta Element fired at 3:58. The lead Iranian armored vehicle came around the last road bend. A Javelin missile launched from the rock shelf, climbed, dipped, and struck the roof. The vehicle burned in place and blocked the road. The second vehicle tried to back away. Bravo Element hit its driver through the windshield with a MK-11 Mod 0 round. The 3 trucks behind it stopped. The Delta Element opened with the M2 Browning and MK-48 Mod 0. Men jumped from the truck beds and ran into the ditch. None reached the fortress. By 4 o'clock, the emergency tunnel fight had become the center of the raid. Charlie Element found the lift chamber 1 level below the vault and cut through the cage door with bolt cutters. 8 Iranian forces held the far end behind tool carts and ammo crates. They fired PKM bursts down the shaft room. Charlie Element answered with 2 grenades and a hard push on both walls. The left side moved first, the right side followed. The defense folded. Beyond them lay a narrow tunnel leading to a hidden rear gate in the mountain. At 4:02, Major General Nuri almost escaped. He reached the rear gate with 7 bodyguards and 1 driver waiting beside 2 pickup trucks. The gate motors had just begun to open when Bravo Element, watching the back road through a thermal sight from the saddle, saw the heat bloom of the engines. The call reached Charlie Element in seconds. 4 Delta Force operators sprinted through the tunnel. A bodyguard fired a DSHK mounted in the first truck bed. Charlie Element dropped flat. 1 operator rose, fired an AT-4, and blew the truck apart. The second pickup tried to reverse. A burst from a M4A1 hit the driver. The vehicle rolled into the wall. Nuri vanished from sight for 40 seconds. Smoke, dust, and broken lights filled the rear gate chamber. 2 bodyguards lay dead beside the burning truck. Charlie Element closed the gap before they could seal the hatch. A Delta Force operator threw a flash charge into the culvert mouth. The blast stunned everyone inside. The team rushed in and pulled Major General Nuri out by his vest. He was alive, disoriented, and bleeding from cuts to the face. At 4:04, the objective was seized. Charlie Element secured Major General Nuri with flex cuffs and moved him back toward the vault. Alpha Element stacked the 12 missile guidance cores for lift. Delta Element destroyed the second ZU-23-2 gun with C4 and swept the outer terraces for any last shooters. Bravo Element kept the east road closed and reported Iranian forces reinforcements still trapped behind the burning armored vehicle. Inside the fortress, the last organized resistance came from 13 Iranian forces near the lower barracks. Alpha Element hit them from the front while Charlie Element fired from the stair, and the defense broke in under 1 minute. At 4:08, U.S. Army operators began demolition work. Their thermite burned the server racks in the command room. C4 charges went onto the radio hub, generator control panel, and missile route boards that could not be carried. Delta Element rigged the fuel point trucks to blow. Bravo Element shifted from overwatch to security on the saddle trail. A med team checked all wounded. 2 Delta Force operators could still walk. 3 needed support. A medic checked the prisoner, confirmed he could move, and pushed him toward the upper shelf. By 4:14, extraction started. Alpha element came out of the west tunnel last and planted a final linear charge across the entrance. Charlie element sealed the service shaft with 2 bricks of C4. Delta element fired the demolition sequence as the last U.S. Army operators reached the ridgeline. 3 heavy blasts rolled across the mountain. The west tunnel collapsed. The fuel point trucks exploded. Fire spread across the upper terrace. At 4:20, 36 minutes after the commander was captured and 50 minutes after the first shot, Iranian forces reinforcements finally reached visual range of the fortress. They found the road blocked, the upper guns destroyed, and black smoke pouring from the terraces. Bravo element and Delta element withdrew in bounds across the north saddle, while Alpha and Charlie moved the prisoner and captured equipment through the mountain pass. A final Hellfire missile from an orbiting drone struck the rear gate at 4:24 and sealed the escape tunnel under falling rock. The raid ended at 5 o'clock in the morning. U.S. Army losses were 3 killed and 7 wounded. Iranian forces losses were 91 killed, 74 wounded, and 38 captured. The U.S. Army seized Major General Farhad Nouri, in our 12 missile guidance cores, 18 hard drives, 6 satellite radios, and 4 launch route boards. Destroyed Iranian equipment included 2 Zu-23-2 guns, 3 DSHK heavy machine guns, 2 PKM positions, 2 pickup trucks, 3 transport trucks, 1 light armored vehicle, 1 generator control room, 1 radio hub, and 2 tunnel entrances. The total damage to the fortress, vehicles, electronics, and weapons was estimated at $148 million. Iran believed the mountain fortress could hide a top commander and keep him safe until reinforcements arrived. What actually happened was that 84 Delta Force operators broke the site apart, took the commander alive, and left before the outer ring could close. Iranian forces had rock, steel, numbers, and height. What they did not have was 84 Delta Force operators willing to tear open a mountain in 90 minutes.